May I have your attention, please? We are ready to start our program, The History of Seymour's Ice Cream. I am Paul Samuelian. I worked for Seymour's Ice Cream for over 35 years. I want to thank Ben Gallagher. Without his expertise, I would not be able to work my PowerPoint presentation. If you have a problem with a program, ask any teenager and they will straighten you out. And my son John for his linking it all together, all the sections. And Aunt Betty, ask my cousin Sandra over there, she saved everything. My Aunt Betty, she saved everything. Well, we started out as a variety store at the corner of Pearl Street and Dorchester Avenue. Like many drugstores at the time, they had their ice cream counters. That's my great Uncle Mike behind the counter. The difference is we made our ice cream in the basement. On the left is my great Uncle Charlie. He was a war hero. He fought in World War I. He died at the age of 34 from complications he received from mustard gas over there. And they erected a square in his name at King Street in Dorchester Ave near Fields Corner. Is my Uncle Mike, great Uncle Mike, their sister Nettie, and my grandfather, Yegia. Yegia and Mike were the two owners of the business. That is the original storefront as it stands today at Pearl Street and Dorchester Ave. Our customers said the ice cream was so good we should put it in stores, and we did. That's my grandfather Yegia on the left and my father on the right. Yegia died in the early 30s, and that left Buddy Seymour, Mike Seymour and his son Buddy, and my father and my Uncle Al. They had a great partnership. Uncle Al went to school at Mass Aggie, which is now UMass, for dairy. He took courses in steam and refrigeration engineering at Wentworth. My father went to BU and studied business administration, and he was good in sales. My father befriended Steve Mugar of Star Market, Paul Sofrino of Supreme Markets. They had a store in Dorchester, BPM's on the South Shore, Shaw's Supermarkets up on Main, and Purity's on the North Shore. Now you got to remember, at this time, Star maybe had one store in Watertown Square and maybe another one on Mount Auburn Street in Watertown on the Cambridge side. Well, it didn't take long to outgrow that building there on Dorchester Ave. My father found this building here on Erickson Street in the Port Norfolk section of Dorchester. At that point, Mike changed his name from Samuelian to Seymour. Thus, Seymour's Ice Cream was born. The official name was Dorchester Ice Cream, doing business as Seymour's Ice Cream. The original building, we had a street going around the building. This structure here did not exist. So we had trucks that had 6 holes, 3 on each side. And we'd have to load one side off the sidewalk at the side of the building, turn the truck around and unload the other side. And we parked the trucks in that doorway there. They went in the front of the building. We held 8 trucks, 3 on each side and 2 in the hold. Then we built our loading dock. Behind that was our first freezer. And behind all that was our Greer blast freezer and hardening tunnel. This is a picture of the property the way it looks today. Zucker's Kufta. That's my Uncle Mike. My father would take me down to see my great Uncle Mike, and he'd be in a room, a smoke-filled office. He'd have a El Producto Penatella in his mouth, and the smoke would be around. And he'd say, "Come over here, Zuckus," which was a term of endearment for a small child. "I give you kufta." Now, a kufta was a small meatball that was shaped like a football, made out of usually ground lamb and finely ground whole wheat. Uncle Mike would take his two fists and squeeze my cheeks so hard it would take me 3 days to recover. And my sister attested that he did the same thing to her. Wow. That's a picture of Uncle Mike as it appeared in the Record American. He was going to the bank down Tinian Street and they robbed him at gunpoint. They took his car and his money. So he had to walk back to the plant to call the police. The plant was my playground. Well, on a Sunday, my father would take me down the plant, and my Uncle Al and my cousin Joe would be there. They were packing orders for customers like Codman Caterers, who they used to buy a pre-sliced ice cream for weddings and events like that, and they would pack the orders in dry ice. So my cousin Joe and I would get in the trucks and pretend the days we'd be out in the open road, shifting the gears and driving the trucks in the garage. And then we'd go upstairs and we'd have races with the green trucks we put up orders on. And it was an incline going downhill. And you know, Joe, he would always beat me. And then I found out a couple of years later, he grabbed the green truck that had the tape around the handle, which meant that it was freshly greased. And that's how he beat me all those times. My dad died in 1959. Dave Whitten, trained by my father, took over the sales job for the ice cream company. And Carol came in to help her father in the office. Diane came in to help Carol after college classes. Joe worked in the shipping department. My sister Vivian worked there during the summers in the office with the cousins. And Mike died in 1962. And when he died, his son Buddy moved up to the office and wrote the checks for the company. And Lorraine, his sister, came in to help in the office. I started working there in 1964. I was a 16-year-old kid. I did every menial job they had. I picked up popsicles, I boxed the popsicles, I bagged the popsicles, I taped the popsicles, I stuck the popsicles, I bagged the sandwiches, I boxed the sandwiches, I picked up the sandwiches, I picked up the, well, you guys get the idea. I couldn't wait to get off the production line. But after production was done, I'd go out and help them in the shipping department. Then I learned to drive a truck at 18. I got out on the road. They gave me the beach route, which was Malibu Beach, Carson Beach, Kelly's Landing. They had good fried clams. Over at Sullivan's, then over to Haja, which is at Houghton's Pond, and then down to Nantasket Beach. We had 4 stops there. Joseph's being our biggest customer, he might take in 50 tubs at a time. And I also filled in for the drivers' vacations, doing the South Shore Run, Newton Run, Somerville Run. So I filled in for drivers' vacations. In 1970, I started full-time. Lorraine left, and Buddy wanted to be bought out. And Vivian got married and moved to Maryland after she graduated from college. So when they left, Albert got the plant ready for future production, which I'll show you further on in the program. Albert passed away in 1980, and that left my cousin Diane became president, Carol became treasurer, Joe was vice president and in charge of maintenance, and I was vice president and in charge of shipping. We worked together in unison for the next 20 years. Joe died at age 50, Dave Whitten retired, and I became the general manager. This is a sample order sheet that we had. We had so many items there, pints, quarts, half gallons, 2 or 3 different brands. skinny dip quarts. Purity Supreme had 7 flavors. Star and Shaw's brand half gallons had about 12 flavors each. And 20 novelty items. Cake rolls, dreamsicles, fruit sticks, fudgicles, ice cream cups, ice milk bars, ice cream bars. Well, you get the picture. We even had yogurt snacks and yogurt cups at that time. Star, well, at that time, Star, we had every Star market with just Star ice cream. They had 50 stores, and Steve Mogar would not let anybody into his stores but Seymour's ice cream or Howard Johnson's, which we delivered on our trucks. So Star got bought out by Jewel Tea, and Tom Stenberg was hired. And he said Star needed national brands in the stores. So right off the bat, Hoods and Seal Test joined us in the case, cutting our market share. But we did keep the Star store brand, and that helped. Our biggest accounts at that time were Stars, Shaw's, and Purity Supremes. And they all went to build warehouses. They didn't want store door anymore. So we got trailer trucks to help them get deliveries. And with that, any company could quote a trailer load to this warehouse at a price and it cut off market share even further. And then the industry started to change. FFE merged with Burry Biscuits, so there's only one place to buy our ice cream sandwich cookies from. There's only 2 cream suppliers and only one place to buy our sticks for the popsicles. Purity Supreme sold out to Stop and Shop, which was 1/3 of our business was gone. From there, it did not take long for a company from the South to quote a price to Shaw's up in Maine 20 cents cheaper than we could make it in Boston and ship it to Maine. Well, we had 3 things that they did not have. We had Boston Water and Sewer, Boston Edison, and Boston Taxes. Fieldbrook Farms came in and bought our supplies and our accounts, and they went bankrupt a year later. And we went out. We knew we had to get out of the business at that point, but we met the demand, and we slowly closed our doors, so we got out before we went out of business ourselves. Now we can get to the fun part, how we made the ice cream. Well, we started in the mix department. We had Richie Lloyd and Joe Nuccio. That's a 100-pound bag of non-fat milk powder they had to put in the vats. We had 2 600-gallon tanks for the mix. Steam jacketed to help break up the mix. We had fresh cream delivered and put into the tank, milk powder, liquid sugar, and liquid corn syrup. That was basically the formula. They'd make up one batch and start processing it while they made the other batch. So it was a continuous process of 1,200 gallons of mix per hour. From there, it went through the HTST, short time system. The short time pump was timed by the health department. So it would take 40 seconds at 160 degrees to kill all the bacteria. The mix would circulate through the heating section and through the holding tubes. And when it reached the proper temperature, the diverter valve would flip over and send the mix to the homogenizer. The homogenizer at 2,000 pounds pressure of mechanical pressure would break up the fat molecules and make a nice smooth product to send back through the heat exchange system. And also the hot mix coming back from the homogenizer would help warm up the mix coming from the tank, and the tank, the cooler mix, would help cool down the mix coming out of the homogenizer. From there, we'd send it over, slowly trickle down plate coolers. The plate coolers were filled with ammonia gas, and the ice cream would trickle down and reach to the bottom at 35 degrees, where we would send it over to 3 of our 1,000-gallon holding tanks or one of our 2 6,000-gallon silos. From there, we would pump it over to the flavor tanks. in which case this was a 3-compartment, 150-gallon per compartment tank for a half-gallon operation. The Cherry Burrell 900 freezer, 300 gallons per hour per barrel. The barrel would churn the ice cream, incorporate air, and give you a nice, smooth product for our operation. We had 2 900-gallon-an-hour freezers, pumping out ice cream at 1,800 gallons per hour. From there, into our Anderson 55-4 machine, we bundle them 4 to a bundle, plastic wrap them, heat shrink them, pass them through the metal detector, and then onto the in-feed conveyor of our Greer hardening tunnel at 20 below zero. The Greer would have 7 packages go onto a tray at a time, rake them onto a tray and elevate. Rake 7, elevate. Rake 7. After 7 elevations, the whole machine would ram forward 1 tray position. And the bottom would rake forward 1 tray position and then start unloading them into the palletizing room. That's a sample of what the Greer trays look like through the hardening tunnel. We had 4 40 horsepower motors to give you a 30-mile-an-hour wind chill that would help harden the ice cream fast. Those are ammonia-filled coils. In the back end of the machine, after they rammed forward, they dropped down. While the front end was unloading to the palletizing room, they dropped down, ready for the next ram, 1 tray position forward, to be taken away by forklift or pallet jack and put into our racks and put away in the freezer. During the month of January, we'd start making popsicles. And down the back, we'd fill up the bay down the back, then the next one over, and then in the middle, 7 high. Bay, 7 high. And we would come forward to the end. By the end of May, we'd have what we called Pop Mountain.
They started making the popsicles in January, February, March, April, and May. And we had this humongous mountain, and it all went out in June. By the middle of July, we were in our lounge chairs waiting for production to make the popsicles so we could ship them out.
That's a sample of a 500-gallon-an-hour freezer. This one worked a little differently. The bottom barrel would pre-cool the mix. The top barrel would do the churning and the air incorporation to pump out ice cream at 500 gallons per hour. And we run it through a machine such as this, a little different design than the half-gallon machine, and that would do the quarts and round plastic half-gallons. Up there was the slim and smooth ice milk quarts. And they came in 5 flavors and they sold very well. And here is our Seymour's VIP vanilla. It was a nice 14% vanilla, great flavor, and we gave that to our customers during the holidays. We had a whole battery of freezers. These first 2 that you see here would do our Sundae cups, 1 for vanilla, 1 for chocolate, and when we get to the machine, it would split vanilla and chocolate for each cup. This is another type of machine that went around, and depending on what plate you had in there, it would be cardboard pints, plastic halves, plastic quarts. And that's my creamery package 150. That freezer would give you 150 gallons an hour of perfect ice cream to run through our ice cream sandwiches. That's our actual sandwich machine.
The ice cream sandwich wafers are made of chocolate cake ingredients. A filling machine feeds 2 lines of wafers toward an injection pipe. Just as 2 wafers come together, the machine injects a third of a cup of vanilla ice cream in between the pipe's head, fits the ice cream into a rectangular slab that fits perfectly between the wafers. All this happens at a rate of 140 ice cream sandwiches per minute.
That is exactly how we made them. Just like that, same operation.
As the sandwiches move on to packaging, the filling is still ice cold from the freezing phase, so there's no threat of meltdown. The packaging system raises each sandwich into a wrapper, then folds and tucks the ends. The next machine counts the sandwiches and inserts them into boxes. Once sealed, the boxes go directly into a storage freezer at minus 22 degrees.
And this is how we made our Nutty Buddies, exactly like this.
A feeder drops pre-wrapped sugar cones in a holder on a conveyor belt. Sprayers coat the insides with a chocolatey layer, which adds flavor and creates a barrier between the cones and ice cream, so the cone remains crispy until you eat it. Next, nozzles squirt in the ice cream filling. One production line, 2 flavors.
We did one flavor, all vanilla.
The other chocolate. Now for a tasty surprise in the cone's core, an injection of liquid caramel.
We didn't have the injectors, they weren't invented yet.
Chocolate and strawberry sauce inside. Next, a chocolate-flavored liquid topping. Then the crunchy finishing touch, a layer of chocolatey coated puffed rice.
We used real peanuts in our Nutty Buddies.
Finally, the cones move under a lid dispenser that applies a wax-coated paper lid to each one. A heating element instantly melts the wax, sealing the lids to the cone's paper sleeve.
That's the exact way we made our Nutty Buddies.
From here, the ice cream cones go into boxes, then straight into the freezer, ready to take a licking.
How stick novelties are made. Well, first we had to move the trucks out of the front of the building. And we moved it into this building here we called the Long Building. Guess how it got its name? In the Long Building we could park 12 trucks, 5 on each side and 2 in the hole. So the early days of popsicle production, if you could picture a brine tank, 30 feet wide, 40 feet long. And we had molds for popsicles and fudgicles. So, how would make the pops? Ed Callahan would fill the molds up by hand.
Wow, that's a lot.
And you go down and fill up molds. Fill up molds. All the way down, and then he'd say, okay, take it away, Earl. And you'd hear, and they go into the next position. Earl would stick them by hand on the side. He'd put the sticks in. And he'd get two rows of molds, and then he'd move them over to the side, and there's a pusher down the other end to push the next row down to him. He'd stick those, move those down, move those over, and the pusher would push them down. So after that whole row was done, he'd say, take it away, and Earl would send the machine down to Big George. Big George would have the extractor bar, and he'd latch onto the molds, onto the sticks, and pull them out and extract them onto a table. And we'd have 3 baggers, they bag the pops, box the pops, tape the pops, and put them away. But that was his operation. That's how we made the popsicles in the early days. Chocolate cover making, one of the old-time production people told me how we made chocolate covers. Well, it was the same process. George, except this time George wouldn't put them on the table, he'd put the bars on a rack. And they'd be white bars on the rack, and we put them into the freezer. The next day we bring out the racks with the white bars. George would take them off the rack, dip them into the chocolate, and put it back on the rack all day long. And they'd go back in the freezer. And the third day, they'd bring them out. George would take them off the rack, put them on the table, where 3 people would bag them, box them, tape them, and put them in the freezer. Enter the Vitaline. The Vitaline saved us a lot of labor and time. The pop mix would be in the hopper and squirt into the molds, and they go down about halfway, in which case sticks would be inserted into each mold. You go down a little more, extract them out of the mold with a bath of hot water, and drop off at the end. We had 2 600-gallon flavor tanks for pops and 3 1,000-gallon tanks, so that one tank might be orange pop and would feed all 3 Vitalines that we had at the time. Popsicle had to be a certain height, size, shape, and twin sticks.
That's quite a lot of work, yeah.
This is a picture of our actual Vitaline operation. This is Vitaline number 2. And I wanted to point out that we had stick sorters, not automatic stick inserters like you'll see in the video in a minute. And those stick sorters would give you, line the sticks up so you grab 100 at a whack and put 100 stick into each slide. If you had popsicles that were on a 6-wide machine, you'd need 12 popsicles. So you'd have 12 slides, 1 for each stick, and they all go down as a machine operated 12 at a time, like that. And that was the operation of how our stick sorters worked. The sticks were a certain size and shape, and that's a picture of them being extracted out of the molds with a hot water bath, or dropped into a wrapper stacker machine like on Vitaline 3. Vitaline 2 had a person to pick them up and put them in the boxer for the Anderson 592 box machine to be boxed and put into the freezer.
Vitaline 1 is a 16-wide setup using 1-ounce bullet molds with the option of an 8-wide setup with a 4-compartment hopper to supply mix to the molds that can deliver ice water to ice cream with the capacity to add additional fillers, remote fill, and
Yeah, those are the automatic stick inserters. We did not have those.
wide setup can produce 20 rows per minute, resulting in 19,200 popsicles per hour. Stormax stick inserters are on all Vitalines, as well as paper stand wrappers and stackers. Vitaline 1 has a Serpa box machine due to its 8/16.
We had to hand box them.
2 is an 8-wide setup that can produce 9,600 pops an hour. And Vitaline 3 is a 6-wide setup producing 7,200 pops an hour, each at 2.5-ounce sizes. Both have similar setups to Vitaline 1, with the addition of a Diplo breaker. These lines feed into 2 40-pack 50-box machines that...
Now we can get into this expansion process to handle all the customers that we had. We started by buying Vitaline number 2, which came from VitaFreeze Equipment Company out of Sacramento, California. It came in my uncle's birthday, so we wrote "Happy Birthday, Al" on the cart, on the box. Came in by truck, that's the way it looked like, all the way from California to our plant. And then the riggers would bring them in slowly and then drop them in place. That's a picture of Vitaline number 3 come in. That was bought up in upstate New York at an auction. The Vitaline is only 1/3 the story. We had to have a shell and tube attached to refrigerate the brine that was in the tank. These pop molds sat in 20 below zero calcium chloride brine. So we needed a shell and tube, you needed 100 pounds of air, and you needed 50 pounds of steam to run your Vitaline. That's a picture of the shell and tube. That one for Vitaline 3 went on our roof. We didn't have room in the basement. The first two had a shell and tube in the basement. This one went on the roof. We bought 100 tons of low temperature ammonia refrigeration. That's a Fuller booster rotary compressor A175. 100 tons of low temperature refrigeration. To go with that, you needed 100 tons of second stage provided by this 12-cylinder Mycom ammonia compressor. And Glancy Riggers brought in our condensing units. We needed 2 AEC 232 Imaco condensers, and they were so heavy they had to be brought in by sections, and they drop on, and we bolted them before the crane took away the straps for the next load, which was the third section coming in by crane. That's what it looked like fully assembled. Those are the Imaco AEC 232s, which gave us the proper condensing of the ammonia hot gas, brought it back to liquid so we could reuse it, and it was stored in our receiver tank. So we had to remove that building for our third chest. We had 2 50 by 100 freezers. This was the second one, chest number 3. Note the extra steel in the back end to support the weight of our condensing units that we ordered along with it. And that's a picture of the freezer, the way they looked after they were built. That's the alley before, and then you can see the freezer in the background after. We built the trailer barn. It held 2 tractor trailers all hooked up, ready to roll in the morning. And we had a total of 6 trailers and 3 tractors to pull the loads where we were going to Vermont, Maine, or Star Market warehouse in Watertown. That's the unit already hooked up. We had to buy 2 silo tanks. And last but not least, guess who came by the plant one day in Dorchester?
If you're looking for a sign while working on a show about signs, well, that's it.
Seymour's Ice Cream stopped selling its Nutty Buddies and other frozen treats in the early 2000s, but its Dorchester billboard still stands.
Thank you all for coming. That is the end of today's program. But just remember, when you're driving on the highway towards Boston and you pass the Venezia sign, behind that Venezia sign is a Seymour ice cream sign, from now to eternity. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed. Any questions? Don't hesitate to ask. Nice job. Oh, wait a minute. We had a question. Wait a minute. Somebody was paying attention. We have a question from the audience.
So what was your proudest moment at Seymour's Ice Cream?
Oh, my proudest moment at Seymour's Ice Cream. Well, anybody here with the blizzard of '78? Well, it took me a day to shovel from my garage to the end of the street. And the next day I arranged with the fire department to pick me up and drive me to Dorchester because there was no other way to get to the plant. I had to get to the plant. So he dropped me off at Gallivan Boulevard and Hilltop Street, and I walked in. There were helicopters overhead with bulldozers going on Route 128 and all kinds of help with the National Guard. And I was walking into the plant over cars because it wasn't plowed out yet. And when I got there, wicks. You want to go down to the next slide there? Keep going down. One more. One more. There we go. That is what I confronted. I was a little bit of a snowdrift there, you might say. I climbed over the drift. The side door was free, so I could get in the plant in the side door. And honestly, I was not alone. A fella, brave soul, named Bob Livingston, I'll never forget him, he joined me there. He lived close to the plant, so he could walk in with me. So, just as I thought, the plant was stopped. So I'm walking down the aisle to get to the second stage machines, and the phone rings. Who the hell would be on the phone? So I go back to the office, answer it. Hi, this is Dan Conley. I'm not coming in today. All right. So I walk down the plant again. The phone rings again. Hi, this is Joe Luccio. I'm not coming in today. Okay, thanks for calling. And I didn't pay attention to the phone after that. So to make a long story short, I got the second stage going, and then I tried to get the first stage going. The first stage wasn't having it. So I had to open up the bypass valve so we could run it on single stage. Now for you refrigeration people, you have no idea what I'm talking about, for ones that don't know refrigeration. But the key was to get into the engine room where the king valve was for the receiver tank. That's when I needed the gas mask. I didn't even think about it. I put the gas mask on and I entered the room from the third chest. We had a little passage door there. I went in the third chest, I turned on the boiler to boil out the ammonia, the room was loaded with ammonia. And I closed the king valve, and I started up my old standby. It's over here, the 3-cylinder Howe. 9x9x9 ammonia compressor. And after about 20 minutes, I checked the freezers. Oh my God, it works! It was starting to get cold, I was amazed. 3 o'clock that afternoon, the power went out again. I closed the king valve. I called my uncle on the phone. He had no idea. I knew how to start the plant up. I said, I got the king valve shut. It was single staged. I'm going home. He says, get the hell out of there. So the next day I went in and we did the whole thing again. I got this 2-stage going. We started production on Saturday and Sunday to get rid of the mix that we had already made up before it went bad. We had a driver come in on Sunday to deliver the ice cream that we had on the trailers that were running for all that time. But my proudest moment was when my uncle called me up to the office. And he says, boy, we're going to get you your refrigeration license. I had no idea you knew what you were doing. So that was my proudest moment. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, how'd you get home?
How did I get home? I thumbed.
We got another one here, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Go ahead.
Going back to the original location in Savin Hill, who made the ice cream? How did you get
The ice cream, I wasn't there then.
Oh,
The
I know
ice
you
cream
weren't.
was made in the basement. They had a
But they made their own,
tank.
I mean, you didn't
We
get-
had a 150-gallon batch freezer. We made 150-gallon wax at a time and filled up tubs, as we have over there as a sample. We filled up 2.5-gallon tubs and flavored or whatever in the basement.
So that's what they're back on Savin Hill. That's really, they were an ice cream shop to begin with, is that?
Yeah, ice
Oh, okay. I couldn't tell whether they had other things and they just,
Well, it was a variety store.
Variety store,
They
and
sold
they
other
made
stuff
ice
with
cream.
the ice cream.
yeah, that's how Howard Johnson started,
Right.
you know?
Maybe you should say a couple of things too. You want to? No?
All that equipment must have been expensive. Were you able to sell any of it when you closed?
Yeah, the auctioneers were really good. We got about 10 cents on the dollar. That's about the normal range of what you get. We gave that to the help. Whatever we got, we gave it to the help at Seymour.
What's in the building now?
I don't know. I think it's condos and the Boston Distillery,
Distillery.
Still there?
which as you can see,
Right,
the work up there that they did is amazing. It's a wonderful place.
yeah.
Paul, people want to know the history of the building, the long building.
I don't know.
You told me. Wasn't it, Well, it
Oh,
was
you mean-
scooters. Yeah, they made scooters there, and then in Prohibition.
Yeah, well, the whole property was a boatyard.
Yeah.
And we had tunnels going on the plant where they brought it, the bootleggers in from underneath. And from the port. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want to talk about that.
You had nothing to do with it. I mean,
Oh, the tunnels were there. We ran our refrigeration pipes through the tunnel to refrigerate the trucks in the long building.
So it worked out.
Yeah.
Your formula for ice cream, is that similar with Friendly's and all the other ones, Ben and Jerry's?
We have spectral differences.
What,
We're not going into the formulations unless you want to pay big bucks. You want to do S&S Consulting Corporation? You want to make some of your own ice cream?
but they
Yeah, it's quite
basically use the
complicated.
liquid sugar and the cornstarch
That's the basic
and the
formula.
cream
I like
and the
seeing
flavoring.
That's the basic formula.
Do we get an opportunity to see the face behind the podium?
Oh, my wife's on. And always by my side.
God love it.
Thank you, Don.
Except for at Whist, she doesn't come to Whist.
Oh, great.
She's going to get to Whist.
Yeah, I know.
One of these days. Priorities.
Paul, who makes the best ice cream today?
Tillamook Creamery. French vanilla. No other vanilla, French vanilla, they make three.
Tillamook. I know. I sent you a fax.
Yeah.
Is it Tillamook?
Yeah. It's
good.
really
Really
good.
good.
It's really good.
Of all the stores,
Seymour's was better, but tell them how.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't, could you repeat what you just said? Who makes the best ice
Tillamook
cream?
Creamery, you mean?
Who makes the best ice cream?
Tillamook Creamery.
It's Telemark.
Tillamook.
They make cheese, they're from Seattle?
I go by my taste buds. It's better because I close my eyes and I think the way the vanilla came off our plant.
I know.
That's what I go by. The plant was my playground. So my cousin Joe and I would get in the trucks and pretend the days we'd be out in the open road, shifting the gears and driving the trucks in the garage. And we'd have races with the green trucks we put up orders on. And it was an incline going downhill. And you know, Joe, he would always beat me. Always beat me. And then I found out a couple of years later, he grabbed the green truck that had the tape around the handle, which meant that it was freshly greased. And that's how he beat me all those times. Zucker's Kufta. Uncle Mike would take his two fists and squeeze my cheeks so hard it would take me 3 days to recover. And my sister attested that he did the same thing to her.
Wow.
Now we can get to the fun part. How we made the ice cream.
I remember.